Honorable Speaker, my question goes to the Honorable Prime Minister. With regards to the serious and very sensitive issue of the debate on the future political status of Bougainville, the last thing we need is an impasse between the two consulting bodies during this time. I noticed this week, since the Prime Minister's statement, if so, is what he said, which appeared on the front line of the Post-Courier on Tuesday this week. And it reads, "You are not ready." Marape tells Toroama, "Economy and guns still an issue of Bougainville." My question, Honorable the Speaker, can the Prime Minister acknowledge or deny that that is actually what he said? If so, in my humble opinion, we don't need that at this time of the important phase where the good government, through himself and the Minister for Bougainville Affairs, have now got an opportunity through an international independent moderator, the Honorable Sir Jerry Mataperai, in his efforts to manage the processes that lead up to bringing the result of the referendum to the floor of Parliament. We do not need this type of statements at this time. So my question to you, Mr. Speaker, is, if the Prime Minister, is it true that you said that? And my question is, can you withdraw that? The second issue and the question that will follow is, there are acknowledged 4 outstanding issues yet to be sorted out during this consultation phase. And they also appeared in the Post-Courier, and I know that under the JSB processes, both sides are fully aware of them. But our independent international moderator highlighted 4 of them, and one of them, the Minister for Bougainville Affairs, answered a good question, and he answered it very well on the issue of the sessional order and the percentage of voting for the Parliament. I think that's been sorted out as we speak. But there are 3 other issues, to me, in my opinion, are very, very important. One of them is the issue of how, through the moderator, we can help assist during the consultation phase on try and address all the substantive issues before the referendum result is brought to the floor of Parliament. And the substantive issues relate to the issues that we need to ponder on whether this Parliament will vote for or in favor, for or against, and if for or against, what do we do as a country and as a government? In my opinion, those are very important, substantial issues. The second outstanding matter is establishing a bipartisan committee. That has not been established yet. So the question is, when will that bipartisan committee, I think accepted by both governments, when will it be established? Because, as you and I know, this year will be the Bougainville election. And so they will be very busy preparing for the Bougainville election. I understand the agreement in Wabek was 2027 could be the deadline where the result could be brought to the floor of Parliament. And then, as you and I know, 1st of September 2027 is the decision that ABG leaders have put aside as the preferred date for them to be granted independence. The Prime Minister's statement is recorded in this post-courier on Tuesday, plus the processes that the Bougainville government is going through in writing up a constitution for the independent state, plus nominating a date for independence, in my opinion, are preemptive. While the consultation process is still going on, I ask for some restraint because of this important sensitive issue. And I ask the Prime Minister, withdraw your statement or explain to the people what you meant and ensure that the consultation process is going through. And 2027 is also our election too. So these dates are in the consultation phase. In my view, the dates are also very difficult to manage at the same time. So we have a lot of work to do. As I said in my statement, the last thing we need in this country on the issue of Bougainville is an impasse or paper war between our two governments. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Prime Minister.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to appreciate the question raised by the member for Abau. And I want to say to all members of Parliament, because the senior member for Abau seems to be making reference to Post-Korea as a source of authority. I want to say, since when has Post-Korea become a source of authority? Post-Korea and Facebooks are not a source of authority or source of truthful information, but they are a spewer and spinner of opinions and a symbol of what they may feel was uttered. So I want to ask all of us that cross-check your information from credible, reliable sources before fully relying on Post-Korea or any news for that matter, needless to just brand only Post-Korea, even Facebooks, because truth may be distorted or it may be far from the truth in any case. But having said this, the question needs to be raised, especially on the importance of Parliament understanding the work that is currently on foot. Mr. Speaker, in 2019, when we became government, and coincidentally, the member for Abau was the minister responsible for Bougainville, under his words, the referendum was held. Under his words, the referendum was held. And so, and referendum was meant to be held. I want to acknowledge that we were facing the sunset of the 2001 peace agreement signed on August 30, 2001. It calls for referendum in a period of 10 years after that agreement, or no later than 15 years after that agreement. And in the referendum, it was explicit that a question on independence, whether they vote for independence in absolute clarity or vote for autonomy. And Mr. Speaker, based on, and I did in that meeting, we had, I want to indicate to this Parliament, I was transparent in the meeting that we had in the last consultation. This meeting we last had is a section 342(1) meeting. Section 342, subsection 1 meeting, or in everyday language, post-referendum consultation. Post-referendum consultation, member for Abau, Puka is correct. That's a provision for post-referendum consultations. If you look at section 342, subsection 2 also, it gives a place for national parliament to make a decision. And for the first time since 2019, we've outlaid to them clearly that the process of Parliament must be respected. I want to commend Minister Manasseh and Minister Massad, his counterpart in Bougainville. Eventually, also, the Bougainville leadership and Bougainville people. I want to commend Bougainville in every sense, because they are the greatest victim in this saga that has been in our midst 14 years since we became independent. And they've agreed that Parliament has a place for and a role for Parliament. And we cannot ignore, and I emphasized clearly in that meeting that you cannot ignore constitutional provisions. Section 342, subsection 2 demands that Parliament must make decision, and we outlaid to them clearly that in a constitutional matter, Bougainville peace process is a constitutional matter, Part 14 of our Constitution. The entire provisions in Part 14 is embedded in Constitution. When you deal with constitutional matters, constitutional numbers prevail in the affirmative or in the negative. Every decision on the floor of Parliament, Mr. Speaker, you may correct me, but it is my humble view that every decision we take on the floor of Parliament transacts by way of a vote. Even the high and nigh are votes. Because if someone is uncertain, they move a division on you, and you actually call for the actual vote. So every decision made on the floor of Parliament happens as a result. The decision is established by a vote that takes place. And I put to the Bougainville leadership clearly, Minister Manasseh did assist me, and again I commend the Bougainville leadership for understanding that the National Parliament will make a decision. The matter is now being moderated. What is the question that is put to Parliament? What is the decision Parliament must make? Some of these grey areas are being consulted upon, moderated upon, mediated upon, and eventually this matter will come to Parliament for each and every one of you to decide. For me, when I picked the result in Arawa, in the presence of Governor Baird was there, Deputy PM then as Minister was there, a few of the leaders were with me when we picked the decision, Governor Powi, Governor Jufa. I made a statement. I said, I am picking this result in my bag as a member for Tari, simply stating a statement of fact that when it comes to the floor of Parliament, it will be decision based on members' vote. So, Mr. Speaker, those were clearly outlaid to Bougainville as part of my presentation this week when we had this meeting. I also put it to them some facts, and Post-Korea decided to make those facts more frontier than the entire gist of my submissions or presentation. A couple of the facts I put for this Parliament's clarity was that right now, as we speak, the entire budget's Bougainville only 5 to 10%. If I can give them additional increase, 5 to 10% are raised domestically, raised within the region. They need to work to raise internal revenue, and we also here must assist them to raise internal revenue in Bougainville. And so those were matters put to them. They must raise revenue so that they are self-sustaining. And secondly, I point to them, and this one was more so for United Nations. In 2019, when we allowed for referendum to go ahead, there were two important provisions of Section 338 of the Constitution that, in my view, was not fully dispensed or complied. That's full disposal of all guns in Bougainville and good governance. Those are requirements of our Constitution. I felt in 2019 this was not fully pointed to us by United Nations as they recommended for referendum, but in any case, the referendum goes ahead, so my position was clear. You must allow Parliament to make decisions. The beauty of the 2001 peace agreement, the spirit of which we are in this moderation, is that there's a call for consultation, post-referendum consultation. I take the recommendation by Sir Puka on the need for a bipartisan approach. The bipartisan approach is necessary. We can certainly set up a bipartisan in the matter, and we both look into discussing this, because at the end of the day, when a sessional order is moved and when the referendum results is brought into the floor of Parliament, this Parliament will deliberate and make a decision.
Point of order, Honorable Governor. What's your point of order?
Yeah, with due respect to the Prime Minister who's answering a question from the senator from the opposition, there is no provisions for consultation by the leaders to the people of this country in relation to the result of the referendum, and there is no provisions in the Constitution, Part 14, which says that bipartisan committee or any other committee to be set up. The only constitutional requirement is that the leaders must consult each other, which means the Papua New Guinea representative of Papua New Guinea leaders and the representative of the Bougainville, they will consult each other and provide the report to Parliament under Section 342, subsection 2. That is the clear law.
Honorable Governor, by me rule whether point of order in order or no in order, because Prime Minister will suggest him that he must get this bipartisan law. This House, lo you me long, talk na address him this law, whether he need him, require him law or not. Any duty of Parliament, lo make him this law. Prime Minister, you continue your answer question.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Talk with Governor, point of order, important point, making reference to that there is no, he is correct in any sense, there is no reference to a bipartisan committee from a national parliament. But the meaning of Section 342, subsection 1, in terms of leaders on both sides consulting, can embrace leaders from this parliament. Because at the end of the day, the matter comes to Parliament, and both sides of the Parliament will deal with this matter anyway.
You may get another point of order, Honorable Member of Lumedang, when a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as a former Minister for Justice and a member of that committee, I just want to point out that the statement that the Prime Minister made that they have the liberty to discuss of alternative means of consulting concerning constitutional reform, the process, this is all wrong. The Governor for Marape is correct. The law is very clear. The results of the elections, the results of the referendum is only to be consulted. The results, nothing else. And it shall be presented to Parliament to only deliberate, or whatever decision, a decision, no decision, is a matter for Parliament. So I just want to make a point. I was a former member that I served under the Prime Minister as the Minister for Justice. I attended those meetings. I read the law. And to point out that the statement is actually not correct in that regard. Thank you.
Yes, law and stop and talk him, guide him you me long, make him this deal on a issue of Bougainville. So your point of order may be correct. Honorable Member Governor, Lumedang, may ask him Prime Minister to continue make him this last him.
Mr. Speaker, I'm a master ruling below you. Section 141 plus standing order, you talk some legal opinion, I mean, or something, they will talk to Maslow here. So you may lose him also. But me clear along Section 342, subsection 1. In literal meaning or in inferred meaning, I'd rather, because it's a very sensitive matter. When you talk about Section 2 constitutional matter of Brooklyn border block country, a fundamental something. In a blow one blow man or se me tari one man lo deal wanted this something. And you may all talk about this. This requires in-depth conversation. At Section 342, subsection 1, I may be wrong, but talks about consultation. consultation law, wisdom law 2001 peace agreement. I wasn't there, but they had the wisdom to say after referendum, you must get consultation. Because lest we forget, Bougainville and PNG, independence was one part of the entire peace process. Vote for independence, the whole and everything. It was a crisis. It was a peace negotiation that inserted in referendum law independence one block talk. So when you like Brooklyn border block country, you talk on the Section 2 block constitution. Well, they put in before 1975. So this land border block country, the clearest, a nation exists by sovereign boundary definition. So in a block one block member block tari, legally member block tari lo talk. Me like Brooklyn border sa mitla president na prime minister mitla talk na karang kam lo parliament aso. So the wisdom in Sepuka's wisdom that you may all gonna sit down and talk one time. It provided for whatever the talk is. And I see the council from member for Medang and the governor for Marape, that you have limited, so limitations, and then you come inside the parliament current result come. That's a fair assessment. But in respect to Bougainville and the legacy and the history that even predates 1975, this parliament must have the maturity and wisdom to see from their perspective, and we also see from, I've asked them in Wabek, they see from our perspective. And we find a place. If it is not independence and they've moved out from the current level of autonomy, what is it? This comes in the wisdom of many and not in the wisdom of only one person who happens to be prime minister or happens to be president of Bougainville. And those leaders who sat on the peace table in 2001 felt there was a need for post-referendum consultation. The alternate to this is this parliament accepting the result and making whatever decision it is. Mr. Speaker, I put to this House a very big, sensitive matter. Let no layman speak on this issue. Consult your constituent. Take the month of April. Consult your districts. Consult your provinces. That Bougainvilleans have voted for independence through a peace process that James Marape had no part in it. The sunset was facing in 2019. Member for Abau was minister then and brought in the recommendation referendum must be held. We held referendum. Let's consult our people to be fair on them. Look beyond the history. Let's be mature in these discussions, contribute in this section 342 subsection 1 consultation process, and participate in the section 342 subsection 2 decision-making process. Mr. Speaker, post-Korea is not a source of authority or truthfulness. Listen to substance that is presented in the meeting rooms. Thank you very much.